We say good morning to our Sunday roundtable this morning. We're joined by Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Guys, let me just ask you right off the top. The Senate president wasn't shy to include the governor in a list of criticisms for the COVID rollout. Did it open your eyes, Marianne? Let me start with you.
Well, she took the gloves off, and I don't recall her doing that on any other topic in recent history, and deservedly so in this case. So we'll see which action she takes to push Baker on vaccinations, but she made clear that she thinks Baker came up short.
Yeah, Rob, she did make that clear, didn't she?
I got the sense that she's hearing it from her constituents, this frustration, and I think we're all hearing that around, like, when are we going to get to doing it by decade, 75 plus, 65 plus, or 70 plus, 60 plus?
Let's move the conversation back to D.C. Trump is gone. What was his legacy specifically, however, here in Massachusetts, Marianne?
Donald Trump left in his wake death and destruction in Massachusetts. Almost 14,000 Massachusetts residents have died of COVID. That's the equivalent of the entire town of Ipswich. 486,000 cases of people infected with COVID. 1 million people lost their job in Massachusetts, and yet 1 million people in Massachusetts voted for Donald Trump, and hundreds, if not thousands, followed him to D.C. for the coup. So none of it good. We have prevailed. We have resisted. We have lasted this long, but Donald Trump did no good for Massachusetts.
Rob, what was his legacy here?
Well, I take a more political look at it. He barely set foot in Massachusetts during his presidency, if at all. And he knew his lane. He knew where his people were. He was not into expanding his coalition. Ultimately, that's part of what led to his defeat. But I also think his political legacy here in Massachusetts is that two people, Democrat and Republican, Elizabeth Warren and Charlie Baker, helped contribute to Trump's downfall through their criticisms to him and, in Warren's case, running against him.
Let's talk about President Biden. His first few days indicate that he will try to pull in those from the middle and even on the right. So the question, Rob, let me start with you. How long can the honeymoon last between Biden and the far more progressive Democratic congressional delegation of Massachusetts?
Well, I think Biden has to remember that progressives didn't get him elected. Donald Trump got him elected. And if he skews too far to the left, it's going to be a problem for him running for re-election, or his Vice President Kamala Harris inheriting the office if Biden doesn't run. And Biden also has to remember that he is shining now in comparison to what went before Trump. The hard work comes now. Trump is going to fade in people's memory a little bit, and Biden's not going to look so good by comparison. People are going to judge him by his deeds.
Marianne?
Well, I think Biden's being very smart by saying vaccinations aren't Democratic or Republican. Every American wants one. Every American wants their kid to get back to school. That's not a Democratic position or a Republican position. I think that's very smart politics. But when you look at the four areas he's going to focus on, COVID, the economy, climate, and racial injustice, those are all inextricably linked. And if you really focus on those and get some accomplishments done, you're going to keep everybody, including the delegation of Massachusetts, very happy.
Massachusetts is losing someone else to the Biden administration. Stephanie Pollack is leaving the Baker administration as transportation secretary. She's going to join Biden's Federal Highway Administration. Her views here have been mixed. What's her legacy, Marianne?
You know, it's interesting. For all the scandals and shortcomings in her performance, none of it really splashed on her. She was artful. I mean, no one points to Stephanie Pollack and blames her for the RMV and other scandals. Yet she manages to go from being the secretary in a Republican administration for transportation to a Democratic presidential administration for the Federal Highway Administration. So I would say her biggest attribute is she's a skillful political bureaucratic operative.
Rob?
Well, I think she was helped by COVID, too, because the transportation crisis that was more than brewing, that had arrived in terms of traffic on the roads and the T continuing to have problems, abated because of COVID. So all of these things that needed to happen, these traffic problems, 93, 95 interchange, the Mass Pike extension that the Senate President just talked about, things that she kept bottled up instead of moving forward on, they went away because COVID made traffic go away.
The next item is Boston's mayor. The whispers are getting louder, and even State Representative Dr. John Santiago himself confirms he is thinking about running for mayor of Boston. Marianne, what are the pros and cons of his specific candidacy?
Well, you know, John Santiago has served the public in multiple ways at the same time for years. And I think that's the most telling part about him. He was in the Peace Corps, he's a captain in the Army Reserves, he's a doctor at the BMC emergency room, arguably the most challenging emergency room in Boston, and then he's a state rep too. So I think that's a really impressive package. The downside is he's probably the least known of those considering it, but that's changing pretty quickly in the last few weeks when you look at the press coverage of him, and he's got a bigger network than people think. So again, he's my dark horse. Keep an eye on him.
Rob?
I mean, who better in a pandemic to be mayor than a doctor, right? I mean, he has that going for him. I think to a certain extent, he's an outsider because of that. He's a doctor. He's in active military service. He is a state rep. He's not a city politician like most of the other candidates in the race. And let's remember, our current mayor, where did he come from? Not from inside city politics, but from the State House. He was a state rep as well. So Santiago stands out as that.